Hello, Sandy Spring Friends School community. My name is Ben Crook, and oh, I am a part of a group called EarthDNA, which is a climate advocacy and action environmental organization. It's based at MIT, and we are pretty much at a very startup introduction phase. But yeah, just to give a little bit of background about myself, I am a senior at Skidmore College, majoring in, or was majoring in biology. I'm now pretty much graduated, but I graduated from Sandy Spring Friends School in 2017, and I was there until, I started in sixth grade, and so it's been a long life so far, but a good one. And so, anyways, I'm grateful and honored to be a part of your guys' Earth Day, especially because I know how open-minded, engaged, and willing to take action students at SSFS are. So thank you for having me. So I want to first tell a story about compassion. I was bullied in elementary school, and part of me thought something was wrong with me, I guess, because of this. And fortunately, going into sixth grade middle school, I made a friend named John who invited me over for a play date for the first time. And when I got to his house, he showed me this like cabin in the woods away from his actual house with these like trains on every single shelf. And it was like amazing. It was like a sixth grade boy's dream. And we were playing with these trains, and he had this favorite red caboose that he liked. And he presented it to me. And he's like, "This is my favorite one, but you can play with it if you want." And I just remember glowing with happiness with this small gesture. I just thought, like, life is perfect. Like, I'm just good. And fast forward to ninth grade, I saw this boy that I'm pictured with. I look a little different now. That I'm pictured with, and his name is Jordy. And at the time when I saw him at the ninth grade orientation, he was standing next to his parents, head down, gaze averted, just seemed like a new kid. And I saw him, and I'd been there, and I wanted to just metaphorically give him that same red caboose that John had given me. And I didn't know how to do that though, and I was scared about how he might react. I was scared. I had self-doubt about my own social capabilities, and yeah. But fortunately, we were on the same ninth grade trip, um, and I saw him. I was walking up on one of those classic Yale school buses, and I saw him sitting alone, and I thought, this is my chance. And so tons of false confidence, I plopped myself down next to him, and we timidly started to have a conversation, and we've been best friends ever since. So today's presentation is really a story, or really about compassion. So today I would like to talk about the truth, the consequences, the myths, and the future. We'll start with the truth. In particular, let's review the science of what's happening about climate change. We'll go through it slowly. In 1896, a scientist discovered the greenhouse effect. And basically, that means that some gases in our atmosphere trap heat. We later found out that when we emit these greenhouse gases by burning fossil fuels for transportation, electricity, things like driving, flying, and air conditioning, all emit greenhouse gases. As we burn fossil fuels like oil, gas, and coal, greenhouse gas concentrations rise. You can see how since 2005, carbon in the atmosphere has increased steadily. Here's that same data, but starting since 1700. And you can see how shortly after the Industrial Revolution, carbon dioxide concentrations start to climb. Now, here's that same data from 800,000 years ago. And the maximum for the majority of this time period was only 300 parts per million. Then Homo sapiens, that's us, came about around 300,000 years ago. The Industrial Revolution happened about 250 years ago. And here's where carbon in the atmosphere is today. or carbon dioxide, I mean. And so basically greenhouse gases have spiked since industrialization. As humans emit more greenhouse gases, our atmosphere traps more heat and the earth warms. Here's a time lapse showing this since 1950, and we start with red and blue equally balanced, but as the years go on, we see a little bit more and more red, showing the earth getting hotter and hotter and hotter. We've now warmed the earth by 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And you may be thinking, just like I have, like who cares about this insignificant small number? Yeah, like what does this mean? And that brings us from the truth to answer that question. We have to go from the truth to the consequences. Let me show you why 1.8 degrees matters. So here's our climate. I know it's just a graph, but basically what I'm showing is this average temperature. And usually we're right here in the average where there's extreme cold and extreme hot, but usually we're around this average. Now watch what happens when we move this average in the right direction, or in this right direction. We shift that average. Even a small change in the average, like for example 1.8 degrees, makes our weather more extreme. In other words, climate change is already affecting us. Hotter air means drier soils, leading to wildfires that spread farther and faster than before, as we have seen with California, especially recently. Dry soils also makes droughts last longer. Warmer temperatures also means warmer oceans, and they're expanding because of the heat. This is called sea level rise, and it's threatening coasts around the world. And this is actually a picture taken in Maryland, specifically Ellicott City. So it's clearly happening where we are as well. Warmer temperatures also means a warmer atmosphere that can hold more moisture, leading to more intense storms. Overall, I would say dry places get drier and wet places get wetter. If we look at this map and we zoom in on the state of Maryland, we see that we are very much, next to water or the ocean, with the Chesapeake Bay just cutting right through our state. And we have experience with severe storms. This is another picture of Old Ellicott City in a different time where flooding happened, and it's only, unfortunately, going to keep worsening over time with sea level rise. Rising temperatures are also amplifying urban heat islands. Specifically, I think this is showing somewhere in Baltimore, if you zoom in there, and then also this is really affecting marginalized communities more significantly than elsewhere. And droughts also make things harder for farmers to grow food. When food supplies become affected because of extreme weather, food prices go up. This is another example of this happened in 2019, where there were massive floods in the Midwest, and some people can afford these food price increases, but some can't. Basically, the takeaway here is that climate change affects vulnerable people more than others. I am a privileged white guy about to get a college degree, and while climate change does affect me, it affects others far more. But people are resourceful, and so all around the world, they won't put up with suffering if they don't have to. Maybe it's not surprising then that the UN projects there will be 200 million environmental migrants by the year 2050. 200 million people will leave their homes because of changes in the environment. Before we move on from consequences, I want to broaden our view beyond humans. According to the UN, the current species extinction rate is 1,000 times higher than natural background rates. We're on track for 1 million species extinctions. We could live more sustainably, so why don't we? That brings us from the consequences to the myths. To set the stage, I want to talk about something called the tragedy of the commons. Basically, the tragedy of the commons means that when anyone can access a limited resource, it runs out. Traffic like this, as seen in this picture, is a great example. Everyone with the car can access a road, so soon enough, space runs out, and everyone ends up thinking, if these idiots would just take the bus, I could be home by now. And so, what are I want to ask, and I know this is asynchronous, but think of some real life examples of other real life examples of commons, and think of limited resources that anyone can access. Are there any that come to mind? Well, one of the biggest ones that we have is the Earth. The Earth as a whole is a limited resource, and we all can access it. So, how do we go about just dealing with that? Well, we usually have to set rules for collective action to even be a thing, and for us to even try to address these things. And setting rules for everyone is called politics. Setting rules for everyone is called politics. Protecting the most important commons, an inhabitable Earth, is political. We need rules. But, rules cost money, and, the carbon tax, one of the most popular proposals to stop climate change, is basically when if someone emits carbon, they have to pay a tax. And we could take that tax money and invest it into new jobs or new technologies, but many things would get more expensive. Rules limiting carbon affect everyone, especially fossil fuel groups who emit more than anyone. We have different sectors that emit carbon dioxide here, where we have residential, commercial, then yellow is industry, orange is transportation, agriculture and land use are green. But this biggest one, surprise, surprise, energy, oil, gas, and coal, aka fossil fuels, emit more than all of the other sectors combined. Fossil fuels have been useful, and they enable our modern lifestyles, but the fossil fuel industry has also known about climate change for decades. In 1978, more than 40 years ago, Exxon's senior scientist said present thinking holds that a man has a time window of 5 to 10 years before the need for hard decisions regarding changes in energy strategies might become critical. In other words, we had 5 to 10 years to figure out new ways of getting energy. We needed to figure out ways of doing that 40 years ago. So kind of a little mess up there. Fossil fuel companies have also spread myths to the public. Case in point, between 2003 and 2010, the Koch family foundations and other fossil fuel groups gave $558 million to climate denial organizations. And I wish I could share more financial data with you, but these groups are very secretive and hard to study. The point is, fossil fuel companies know that rules will hurt their profits. And so they spread myths about climate change to prevent us from making any rules. But now you know the truth. Climate change is real. It's happening because of us. It already affects you. It will only get worse. And we haven't done anything, really, because fossil fuel companies have lied to us for decades. So that leaves us with one last section, the future. How do we shape it? Right now, all around the world, people are fighting to take action. Project Drawdown has worked, just one group, has worked with hundreds of experts to create a list of the top 100 solutions to climate change. Things like restoring forests to absorb more carbon from the atmosphere, educating women to live more sustainably, and building wind turbines to generate clean, renewable energy. Another great example is plant-rich diets. These are actually my pictures, which I'm proud of. And, the point is, everyone around the world is doing amazing work to get the ball rolling with this climate movement we're all part of. But one thing that we can all do, one thing that we really all need to do more is talk. We need to talk more and often and loudly and just in general. And I know talking doesn't really seem like it's enough given what I've shared, but studies have shown that personal conversations can change climate beliefs and inspire action. And this is such a cliche thing to say, and I know it doesn't sound like it's enough, but your words can make a real difference. And that's the thing, we're trying to spread awareness. Awareness is one of the first things that can happen to promote and cultivate change. This can be very difficult in some aspects. Like I talked to my grandma like recently, and it wasn't perfect, but it's important to be open, gentle, and honest. You can start with, how do you feel about climate change? And it's not going to just happen overnight. I think I opened up a door with my grandma, for example, and that was a great first step. So I'm happy, I'm proud of, and I'm hoping everyone here can do the same thing. And if you're interested in learning more about difficult conversations and climate leadership in general, we at EarthDNA can teach you. It's not too late to keep our paradise, but we can't do it without you. As I said in the beginning of this presentation, I am involved with climate change because it's an issue of compassion. And I think we all know the value of compassion. I think the pandemic we're all in has really shown how much compassion we have for one another. The entire world is affected by this. Obviously, some people more than others. And it's one of those things where it's hard to know what you can do. And sometimes we feel helpless. We can't just flip a switch and have this magically go away. I think one of the hardest things we face right now is how to stay connected and not get lost in our own bubbles. I was stuck at home all last winter break, and my friend Yoji and I called each other every day because we needed to just talk to someone outside of our families. And I bet every single one of us here can think of a moment where they've shown more compassion than they normally would have, given the circumstances we're in. And just like the pandemic, we are also facing another global challenge, which is climate change. It's another global threat where some people are affected more than others. And again, it's hard to know what you can do. I certainly sometimes feel helpless, and we could very well choose not to act. And once climate change continues to get worse and we see more flooding in Ellicott City and more urban heat islands and more just droughts, we may think back and regret our decision of choosing not to act. And we'll think about what we could have done. So I'm here to say we can do something solid, tangible, and concrete. One of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves and others is by caring and being compassionate for others. So let's start by acknowledging what clearly needs to be done about climate change. I think we should take action, and we need to take action for the sake of ourselves, but mainly for everyone else around us that we know and don't know living here on this planet. These are already such challenging times, and all of us have already risen to them by still being here today. And we do this by holding strong to our values. The compassion we have shown for each other in these already hard times speaks to our unlimited capacity to act out of love and kindness for ourselves and others. We have done good until now, and we can continue to do better, especially when it comes to climate change. So I'm going to leave you all with a 5-day challenge. SSFS is a very community-oriented, and I think that's why speaking here is so beneficial. If everyone could please write down the list of 5 people that they could talk to about climate change, and each day, just talk to someone on that list. It could be your friend, parent, whoever, and you can have fun with it. Hold your friends accountable, make it a competition. But I just want to say that I think, even though it doesn't seem like a lot, awareness is the first step, and having these conversations, studies have shown, is meaningful and impactful. And so one last thing I want to say is authentic thinking that is concerned about reality, does not happen or does not take place in an ivory tower of isolation, but in communication. And I firmly believe in this. This is a Brazilian philosopher, but I just want to leave you that be your name Bobam, Bixby, or Bray, or Mordecai, Ali Van Allen, O'Shea. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way and talk to people about climate change. Thank you.